I am Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. He is the author of several books, no other than Mr. Dylan West. Welcome back, Mr. Dylan.
Well, thank you, Daniel. It's great to be back.
Yes, so let's do the recap of the two episodes that we did. So we talk about your first book on the first episode and what it's all about.
Okay, so the first book is Scribe's Descent. That one is young adult, Christian based sci fi and fantasy. And it's about a planet that's never had an earthquake until one day it had a big one. So the military sends a team of young explorers down a deep mine shaft to find the cause of the quake. And of course, when they get down there, they find a lot more than that. So that is the start of a 5-book series called the Scribe series. And I wrote that book based on a video game, which I have a playable demo for on my website. And I also published Emulsipation. That is a TV show in written format that is quoted in the Scribe series. So those are the two books that we spoke about in the last two sessions.
Yes, and today what we're gonna talk about.
So there is another book that I have been working on. This one is not published, but it is in the works, and it's called World of Me. And if you want to check out the first chapter of this book, I have it posted on my website. I was wondering if you wanted me to read chapter 1 on the call, or read part of it, or just talk about it, however you want to handle that.
Yes, we can read and talk about it.
Chapter 1 is called Can You Hear Me? Of the 9 humans I've lived in, nobody feels as deeply as Ren Gatley. I hear his every word, see his every sight, listen to his every thought. Lately, those thoughts seem leached of hope, and the resulting hormone storms are starting to kill off my counterparts. If I don't find a way to comfort him, I could be next. The others think I'm crazy for even trying. Humans can't hear us, they say. Give it up and get on with your life. But I have no other life to get on with. My colony is made up of over 52 million cells, and each one wants to tap this nerve ending and listen. It's 9:29 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which means my human will wake up and start another lazy day in the summer of 1998. Well, it would be lazy for any other 17-year-old male. But knowing Ren, he'll read all day at the local library. Knowledge will flood his brain, and by some miracle even we bacteria don't understand, thoughts will vibrate down his nerves like ghost currents. I'm not the only listener. Every so often, Pulsomel joins me. It's the closest thing I have to a friend, and even it thinks my obsession is strange. Right now, it's releasing proteins to stamp out inflammation from last night's taco supremes. I should help it, but I can't spare my cells for anything but listening. If I ever manage to speak loudly enough for Ren to hear me, maybe I'll tell him to lay off the habaneros. Hey, Aurum! It's Grierson, one of the many lactobacilli in my intestinal fold. If a bacterial colony could smirk, it would be doing it now, judging by the tone of its voice. Wait till the milk and cereal flow. The host isn't coherent until then. I morph a cluster of cells into the rough shape of a hand with the forefinger raised. Shh, I'm trying to listen. Ren's feelings get stirred right when he wakes up. Grierson waggles tendrils of cell clusters at me with short staccato bursts, the bacterial version of a mocking laugh. Calling the host by name and mimicking human gestures won't help your reputation. On my list of concerns, reputation is so far down I can't see it, I shoot back. And you think the boy's feelings matter? Grierson says. Other than cortisol and adrenal spikes, why would we care? He stresses and we dial the hormones. That's all we can do. You realize we can't keep him from worrying in the first place, right? I withdraw my hand-shaped cluster and return it to the mucosal wall, trying to ignore it. The lactobacillus colony starts to swim away, then stops. You're looking thin. You'd better stretch out for a breakfast grab, because he doesn't eat lunch until after 2. Surprised at his uncharacteristic concern, I hold out a motionless bundle of cells to acknowledge it. With a flick of its many flagella, which are rare for its kind, Grierson takes off towards its villus, which lies on the next higher fold from mine, a few centimeters closer to the stomach and the brunt of its acid. I look around at the swaying villi, the millions of tiny fingers extending from the slimy tubular wall, and pity my friends in the colon who don't enjoy such a view. The nearest colonies regard me with amusement as they stretch out to prepare for a bowl of life cereal. They place bets on whether it will be cinnamon or regular this time. They could just tap into Wren's optics and read the box, but that would be too easy. Because I'm not hungry and much more interested in snugging up closer to the nearest nerve, I tuck deeper into the mucus, push through the basement membrane and against the wall of muscle. This also gets me out of the way of colonies who extend themselves into the open canal that humans call the lumen. That enormous tunnel where all the food comes flowing through. We bacteria have our own names for every piece of human anatomy, but Lord Clarost mandates we use the human terms instead. It even makes us speak the primary language of our host, falling back on our own only when the human host lacks a word for that thing. Over the centuries, I've spoken Mongolian, Mandarin Chinese, Korean, and English. The neural pathway surges with emotional signals. Wren is waking up. I shout against the muscle right where I sense a nerve ending, then listen for a response. Over the years, I've settled on a system trying to make contact at different times of day. I try as he wakes up and falls asleep, when he's undergoing REM cycles, and when he's in various moods. Nothing's worked yet, but colonies farther up the small intestine have heard me. That fills me with hope. One day, I might just succeed. At first, only lactobacilli in my section of the jejunum could hear me. Then those up in the descending duodenum could too. Last month, my words made it to a rare colony in the stomach. So, if my voice keeps getting louder, it may one day reach the brain. If that happens, Wren will get such a jolt of surprise that I couldn't help but feel it, and I'd hear some thought in response. I've often wondered what he might say, and how he'd react when he discovered whose voice he was hearing. What would we talk about? Would he be too scared to hold a conversation, thinking me some hallucination? I can only hope his natural curiosity would overcome fear. Even now, he thinks about the books he might discover today. The other colonies say he's a nerd, and they're probably right. But this part of him keeps me trying. His curiosity might help him be the first to hear the microbial world. He already responds to hunches more readily than most. What humans call a gut instinct is more accurate than they know. Indeed, our voices sometimes touch the very edge of their consciousness and nudge them on key decisions. That's the closest we ever come to true verbal communication. And all other colonies have learned to settle for that. Not me, though. I want more. Something in my own gut, so to speak, tells me Wren will hear me someday, if I don't give up like the others have. They don't dare chalk this up to youthful optimism, because I turned 217 last month. I've spent about an average of 25 years in each human before switching to a baby during childbirth, the rare occasion that I slip down the colon and out the hatch. Wren doesn't turn 25 for another 8 years, but I won't leave him. Even if he undergoes multiple courses of antibiotics, I'll just put my cells to sleep and wait it out. He's been healthy enough so far, but his lonely spells are churning up inflammation in a big way, the kind of loneliness we bacteria don't usually see until middle age. I'm desperate to help him pull out of this. Perhaps that's why I try so hard to speak to him. I might lead him to more friends or better connect him to the one he has. He likes Oliver, but that friendship doesn't help as much as it should. Oliver's a nice kid, but he just can't feel as deeply as Ren does. The two of them are too different at their core. I knew that even before Oliver's colonies told me all about him. If only I could help Ren find the right person. He wants a girlfriend, and perhaps that would help him a little, but what he needs is a real friend, someone who can see him, feel what he feels. But I've checked the personality profiles that other colonies post to our data stores, and there doesn't seem to be anybody nearby who'd make a good match. The wall of muscle contracts hard against my cells in a way all gut flora recognize by instinct. Peristalsis, the ripple that signals digestion. The others let out a squee of spontaneous delight. Ren still can't hear my shouts. I would sigh if I could. Might as well go out and feed. I back out to the mucosal surface and reach for some chyme. I know the composition of life cereal all too well. This particle has whole grain oat flour, sugar, and some corn flour. No cinnamon in this one, so this must be the original flavor. I chew more and taste the yellow 5 and 6 along with some salt. Good. I needed salt more than anything else. Somebody tell this kid's mom to buy yogurt again, someone shouts from a few villi over, and others laugh. The mom only buys the Parton Farms brand, Grierson adds, and only when it's on sale. That won't be till next week according to the grocery postings. All colonies watch the grocery postings with unqualified zeal. Knowing what food to expect based on tips from friends and the guts of supermarket stockers proves awfully useful. The predictions have become so accurate that most bacteria regulate their personal stockpiles accordingly. If potassium will be scarce over the next month, we'd better ration today's banana to hold us over. My appetite sated, I return to the muscular wall and listen for Ren's mood, which should be taking a satisfied shape about now. Instead, the signal blazes down the neuron like acid fire, stinging my cells and making them flinch away. Then comes the thought, I wish I could talk to my parents about what I'm learning. I can't relate to the sentiments humans have toward their parents, since bacterial colonies didn't really have parents of their own. But I've spent enough time inside people to know how special that relationship is to them. This wasn't the first time Ren harbored this idea, but it never scorched as it does now. And like most humans, Ren isn't even thinking of the root of the problem behind his pain. If articulated perfectly, the thought would be, they only listen when I'm talking about topics they care about. They don't love me enough to listen when the topic is one they have no interest in. With the same fervor that other colonies stockpile nutrients, I record my observations in my data storage cells and tap the muscle wall again. It's still flared up with sadness, but I make myself press in until I become acclimated. Gradually, his sorrow becomes mine, swelling me with feelings of inadequacy. I can only bear it for a few minutes when Ren's like this, but it's important that I share his every feeling, to experience life as he does, as best I can. In order to speak to him in a way he can hear, I must first listen. Even if he never knows how much attention I pay to him, what I do matters, though I don't know why. Besides, it's fun to discover the profound beauty in him he can't see. I keep hoping some other human will discover the same things and tell him all about them. A teacher, perhaps, or a random stranger, to give voice to the words I shout to him every day. I see myself in him. If I were a human, I would be a lot like Ren. I tap his visuals and see him rise from his dining table. He rinses the bowl and returns to his cramped bedroom to put on shorts and a t-shirt. Soon he'll be heading out the door to hop on his bike and head for the library. The dopamine rush and heightened blood flow from cycling will do him good, and all of us for that matter. When living things convert ATP to ADP at a fast clip, good things happen, and humans are no exception, as long as they're not fighting or fleeing from some predator at least. The only real physical threat to Ren consists of a full-grown Doberman Pinscher that sometimes runs loose on Maple Street, which is why he stopped taking that way to the library, opting for a detour. He could use the extra cycling anyhow. I see him stepping out the door and down the ratty wooden stairs to his yard, where thousands of fleas bed down in the sand. The grass is sparse and a neighbor's dog comes calling for scraps every day, so this is the natural result. Ren's ankles are bit up and he stops to scratch them. Now he's walking his beloved beat-up stunt bike across the sand until the dirt is firm enough to ride on. With a green backpack cinched down tight around his shoulders and a skyward glance for rain, he starts to pedal. Blood rushes to the wall of muscle beside me and his nerves calm. Soon the dopamine kicks in and some of the happiest moments he ever experiences begins as he sails along the asphalt roads where he feels free and competent. Ren's been riding bikes from the age of 4. He'd started out on this very street, and I still remember the thrill that shot through him when he first rode without training wheels. Most houses in this neighborhood are shabby, their yards choked with tall grass and vines, but he doesn't mind. The traffic here in this sleepy town is mild, and the roads promise to take him anywhere on earth. He forgets his claustrophobic house as he stretches himself out to fill the open sky, breathing as if to pack all of it into his lungs. If only he never left his bike, and every moment could taste like this. If there's one thing our human host always gets right, Grierson begins with a voice that sounds almost happy, is that he exercises right after breakfast. He's active after most meals, Paul Sommel says while processing his chyme. It's one of the best colonies at metabolizing food into vitamins K and B12. Wish the adult I used to live in did the same. He would have lived longer. And Ren started lifting weights 6 months ago. I don't know about you, but that's made my job a lot easier. I would jump in with my own praises, but Paul Sommel is doing just fine on his own. Though I wonder if anyone else realizes that Ren hopes weightlifting will help make him worthy of love. I doubt they care. Chatter dies off as everyone returns to digestion. I return to the optic signals and find that Ren is now crossing the railroad tracks into what passes for the rich side of town. Port Marston is not the most glamorous city in Georgia, having only one dinky movie theater and one bowling alley. Humans have to drive all the way to Jacksonville, Florida to find any sort of city life. Still, this row of subdivisions has houses with proper garages, tended lawns, and pretty brick mailboxes. And the streets had sidewalks. Ren likes that feature best. That and the glorious fact that most of these households keep their dogs inside. My last few humans festered with jealousy toward the well-off, but not Ren. He barely notices how poor he is compared to these people. How he's deprived of the opportunities to play sports, travel, and the other enriching activities the children here take for granted. As long as he can ride his bike, rollerblade, shoot hoops, and visit the library, he stays occupied well enough. Trouble is, he does those things alone. Even when he visits a friend, usually Oliver, an undercurrent of loneliness still tugs at him. Every human senses this. The other colonies tell me so. I felt this in Ren's mother when I lived in her. I felt this in his grandmother and in the 6 people before her. But in Ren, the loneliness never dies off, like a switch stuck in the on position. Sometimes it peaks at levels I can't handle, and I have to let go for a while. This started around age 3 and has climbed ever since, making a sharp upturn at puberty. If this continues climbing, he may die in his 30s, maybe sooner. I comb through the data stores for similar cases just to see what happens to people like Ren. When the person doesn't commit suicide, he or she succumbs to illnesses doctors can't explain. This cannot happen to Ren. I won't let it. I'm not sure what a bee subtlest colony like me can do, to heal a human's breaking heart, but I believe it starts with making him hear my words. He needs to know that I see him. This is what other colonies don't understand. Let them laugh at my obsession. I've lived long enough to stop caring what they think of me. Besides, if I succeed, I may keep his amped up inflammation from killing us all.
Wow. Interesting, Mr. Dylan.
Thank you.
Sounds amazing.
Thanks.
So, World of Me, how did you crafted it?
Oh, you mean like what inspired me to write it?
Yes.
So at first, I wanted to write a story about two people falling in love because of bacteria in their guts telling them about the other person. Kind of like a romance. But, me being a sci-fi writer, I decided to take it in a more general sci-fi direction. But this story does have a fair amount of romance in it. I don't want to give too many spoilers, but when I do release this book, you'll definitely see it.
Yes. So, World of Me, what behind the title of the novel?
Okay, good question. So, as you saw, there are colonies of bacteria living inside of Ren Gatli. And in fact, inside of every human's gut. And actually, not just humans, all animals and plants too. There are worlds of these colonies living inside of them. World of Me means there's a whole world, a whole big population of these creatures living inside of every person.
Yes. World of Me, how many chapters?
I don't remember right now. I think it's about 30 something chapters. And I think that the current length is about 70,000 words, but that will go up when I revise more.
Yes.
Probably go up to about 90,000.
What are the preparations you did for this novel?
Oh, good question. I spent about 6 solid months studying microbiology, gastroenterology, and immunology before I even started outlining for the plot, because I wanted to really know my stuff to make this convincing. Because if you think about it, I haven't been able to find any book out there that stars bacteria or any kind of microbe as a point of view character.
Yes.
So you really have to know microbiology to make that even remotely convincing.
Yes, definitely. World of Me is a unique story or a novel.
In fact, it was so compelling that when I pitched this book at a local writing conference last year, the literary agent requested a full manuscript from me because he's interested in possibly representing me to publishers, for a traditional deal. My other books that I mentioned earlier, Scribe's Descent and Emulsipation, I published them myself under my own publishing company. But World of Me, I might try to traditionally publish. Would you like me to give you the pitch that I gave that agent that got his attention?
Definitely.
Okay, and this one's very short. It's like 86 words long. All right, here we go. Aurum is a colony who lives in the gut of a teen boy. This boy is so lonely that his inflammatory responses start to kill off his gut flora. Aurum might be next. Aurum tries to speak to his human by tapping his nervous system, but in all of human history, no microbe has ever pulled this off. Even if he succeeds, what if the pathogens find out this is possible? How could they use this power to finally eradicate mankind once and for all?
Wow. And the agent is really, I love this one.
Thank you. But when I tell people about World of Me, they do say this reminds them of Inside Out from Pixar?
Oh, yeah. That's the one I'm talking about. Sorry. Okay. Inside Out. Not Inside.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry. Inside Out, yes.
Yeah.
When you get this idea, who influenced you really?
Actually, maybe just like over a series of weeks and months, I was just thinking of different possible book ideas, just for fun. And I realized that the vast majority of novels are written from the point of view of humans. And of course, that makes sense because the readers that we write for are humans, and we only have experiences being humans. We don't know what it's like to be a dog or a cat, right? Or anything like that. So that's why you don't see lots of books with those kinds of POV characters. I felt that I wanted a special challenge for myself to write from the point of view of something not human to see if I could pull it off and really make it realistic. Right. I knew this was going to be a huge research project, but I love researching science for my books anyways. And when I thought about this, I realized that humans are outnumbered by microbes by just, I mean, the numbers are just crazy. Humans are insignificant when it comes to the sheer number of bacterial cells on Earth. And then bacteria cells are insignificant compared to the number of viruses on Earth. So when you consider the microbial world, humans are barely even a blip in terms of our numbers. So when I thought about that, I realized, our world is really a planet of microbes where humans happen to live among them. And so I felt like, wouldn't it be cool if a novel finally recognized how pervasive and how important these microbes are and give them their own story?
So, Mr. Dylan, tardigrade is a microbes, or which represent a tardigrade is?
A tardigrade? Oh, I haven't looked up much about tardigrades recently. I could look it up right now. The most resilient animals in the universe, water bears. And they are small too. Micro animals. Yeah, I don't really have. All right, so in World of Me, without giving away too many spoilers, it really mainly focuses on bacteria. It does mention other kinds like fungi and viruses. It very briefly mentions things like archaea and protozoa. I don't mention tardigrades in there yet, but I am still revising it, so I might find a way to incorporate that.
Wow, interesting. If a human being will be like tardigrade, we can live somewhere out there in the universe.
So the thing that I found that I think is the funnest thing about writing World of Me is that I get to, writing from the point of view of a bacteria colony, you have to think very creatively about what does life feel like for such a creature, right? What would they know that we don't know? What kind of environments and what kind of habitats would they live in? Like, there are some bacteria that all they do is live in cheese and make cheese, right? And there's some that live in wastewater treatment plants. And so the characters in my book, they kind of talk about this. Right. And some of them have friends who lived in the gut of snakes. And then when the snake died, they transferred to another type of creature. And they lived in this other kind of animal for a while before they finally came and started living in a human.
So, Mr. Dylan, this book is a novel or academic? Which you categorize?
Oh, good question. It is a novel, right? It happens to have, it pulls in a lot of heavy-hitting science, as you saw from that reading that I did. There is medical jargon in there. I try not to go too crazy with it, and in later revisions, I might tone some of that down. I don't know. I have to think about that some. And you will notice that, unlike Scribe's Descent, this book takes place in our universe. So this is not in the Scribeverse. This is in, the one that we know, only in a kind of an alternate timeline. And you might have noticed this takes place back in 1998, not in modern day, because there are some nostalgic elements that I brought into this. There are mentions of certain movies from that time period, like Dead Poet Society, and video games like Chrono Trigger and Zelda Link to the Past and other games like that were really hot. They were just coming out in that year.
Yes. So before we go on, Mr. Dylan, I want to shout out to the people listening in Turkey. Thank you so much, Turkey. In Istanbul, I get 65% audience share. Gaziantep at 8%.
Marhaba,
Korsel, yeah,
nasılsınız?
it's
That's Turkish for
shukran.
welcome. How are you guys
Yeah.
doing?
Yes. And Kwaseli, I have 6%. Trabzon at 6%. Guayamest Hain. Sorry if I mispronounced. At 5%. Manisa at 3%. Ankara at 3%. Tagirdag at 2%. And last but not the least, Bolu at 2%. Thank you so much for supporting this podcast because this podcast is created to empower writers all over the world like Mr. Dylan West.
Woo.
Woohoo! So, Mr. Dylan, what else you can say about World of Me?
There are two main, well, really three main point of view characters. Aurum is one of them. He is a colony of Bacillus subtilis bacteria, but it alternates mainly between his point of view and Ren Gatli, the human host that Aurum lives inside of. There is another viewpoint character who is a villain of sorts who comes in a little later in the book. I don't want to talk too much about that because that kind of gets into spoiler territory. But there is this clash between two halves of the bacterial world. One half is called the Clarosti. They follow Lord Clarost. These are bacteria who want humans to thrive. The other half of the bacteria are led by Lord Ravel, and he wants to eradicate mankind because he and his ilk view humans as the greatest threat to planet Earth. They want to eradicate all the humans. So this issue of Aurum figuring out how to speak to humans through the vagus nerve is suddenly a very dangerous thing when the knowledge of that falls into the hands of the bad guys.
Oh my goodness.
Because then they're going to be able to manipulate the bad actors among humans to really amp up bioterrorism to levels that it was never able to reach in the past.
So the book is already complete, or you still in the process of completing it?
I have written the whole book, first draft, and even the first half of the book up to a second draft. So I am in the process of finishing my second draft. After that, I will probably do 2 to 4 more drafts before I send the book out to beta readers. Now, for those readers listening who really want to get an early look at this book, if you go to the website scribophile.com, I am a member of that community. It's for authors who exchange critiques. If you sign up for an account on that website, scribophile.com, and you go to my author page, Dylan West, you will be able to critique the first, I think it's like 12 or 15 chapters that I've posted there. And if you didn't want to critique, you could just read them. I have them posted. They're early draft. They're like second draft, so keep that in mind. But if you wanted more, that's where you could go to get the first about third of the book so far. The other thing you should know about World of Me is that I have some microbiology friends and epidemiology friends that I have been consulting with. What I've done is I've lifted all of the science questions and assumptions that I've made throughout the story. I've written them all out in a separate Word document, and I've sent it to these other scientists to get their feedback, to ask them, hey, is this realistic? If it's not, how can I change it to make it more realistic? Because I of course, I'm doing a lot of hand waving, right? We don't know for sure that bacteria are sentient or sapient, right?
Yes.
We do know that they do a form of chemical communication with each other. That much I did read quite a bit about. So it is, my story is based on reality, but I do make a lot of assumptions that we can't prove. But it's based on science, though, for sure.
Yes. So, what is your timeline of World of Me?
Oh, good question. So, when I pitched this book to that agent, that was was that September, I think, last September? And he told me that I don't have to give him the full manuscript right away. I can take my time, get it right, make sure that it's ready, really ready for him, and then send it to him. And I want to get it to him by next September, so he only has to wait like a full year. The only thing that makes it hard is that I'm trying to finish revising Scribes Aflame, which is book 2 of the Scribe series. I want to get that out by either next month or June. And then I'll be, working hard on book 3 of the Scribe series. So I'll probably end up having to work on World of Me and Scribes Emerge at the same time.
Oh, wow. Crossing my finger.
Is a lot of work. It's a lot, especially because of how aggressively I edit. I get a lot of revision. I get a lot of critiques on scribophile.com, and I act on most of those critiques.
So, do you think critics make you perfect in the process?
Well, the critiquers, they do help tremendously, especially for authors like me, indie authors who really can't afford to pay thousands of dollars for an editor. Right. One day when my books really take off and I have enough money to afford that, certainly I will hire editors at that point because it'll make financial sense. But at this point, if I spent $3,000 or $5,000 on an editor for one book, it would take me a long time to sell enough copies of that book to recoup that cost. So for me, instead of doing that, I give critiques on Scribophile and in in-person critique groups too. So I spend time critiquing other people to get their critique in return. So it's kind of like crowdsourcing your editing. You could kind of think of it that way.
Yes. So World of Me, is it expandable?
Oh, meaning will it become like a series? Right now, I'm only planning on just a standalone book. But, if it goes over really big and, if the agent really loves it and says that he would like me to try to expand it into a series, I could definitely do that. I just don't have plans to do it right now.
Yes. So before we go on, Mr. Dylan, I'm inviting you to listen to my other podcast, Geography 101. It's all about the places that I visited from Europe, North America, South America, Asia, and a lot more. So please do listen, Geography 101. So, Mr. Dylan, can you please invite our listeners to buy all your books?
Absolutely. So if you go to my website, which is dylanwestauthor.com, and I believe that Daniel will provide links for that on his podcast page. Is that right?
Yes, definitely.
Awesome. So yeah, if you go to those links that he provides, there are several things you can do on my website. One is you can read a free sample of Scribe's Descent and Emulsipation. The other thing, there is a link on those sample pages to the Amazon product page where you can actually buy the book in one of 3 formats. You can get it in paperback, hardcover, or Kindle. So that's one thing you can do. Another thing is on my website, there is a playable demo of Scribe's Descent, the video game. That works with desktop and laptop computers if you have a keyboard and mouse, or better yet, a USB controller. So you can try the game. The other thing to do on my website is to sign up for the newsletter, because all of the geekiest science research that I pour into books like World of Me, The Scribe's Descent, and all these, I take those tidbits and I share them with my fans in the newsletter, because there are just gobs of really, really cool science aspects of these stories that I just couldn't quite pack into the book without slowing down the story. For World of Me, there will be tons of that because, man, the microbial world is bizarre.
Yes. So are you planning in the future to make a game for World of Me?
Ooh, good question. You know, there's actually a video game kind of like that already in the works. And when it comes out, I'm going to pounce all over that. I forgot what the title is, though. I'd have to look it up again. I think they're a
Oh,
few years out before it comes out.
wow.
Another franchise that people, I think it's a movie that people compare World of Me to is Osmosis Jones. And I
Oh.
still need to check that out because people keep saying, "Hey, yeah, you should check that out."
So, Mr. Dylan, why are you planning to publish your World of Me to traditional publishing?
Because I want the experience. I love self-publishing. Make no mistake. If I feel like I don't find success with agents and traditional publishers or with World of Me, I will definitely publish it myself and sell it at all my events and all that I do for Scribes Descent in Emulsipation. But I figured I would give it a shot just to see what it's like because I've never landed an agent. I've never published with a traditional publishing company. And I just figured, hey, it'd be good for something different. And the thing that gives me an edge, if you will, over the people who just only submit to agents and they've never self-published is that I have experience of marketing books and selling books and formatting, and all those things, the business functions that, typically a publisher will do for you. I've already done all those things for several of my titles. So I know that side of the business. And so that means that when the agent picks me up, or if they pick me up, they know that they're getting somebody who already has a pretty big fan base. I've already got a few thousand customers and newsletter subscribers who are going to be hungry for this because they loved my other work. So that's huge. That really helps.
Yes, big advantage of you. So, what is your writing thought for those aspiring writers all over the world?
Okay, well, I've got two things for you. I think the last podcast you asked me that, and I mentioned getting critiques. All right, that's important. And giving critiques to that's huge. But the other tip I want to give you this time is to start learning the business side of being an author as early as you can. I wouldn't wait until after you've published your book and then start thinking about it. That's really late, right? The kind of things you're going to want as a new, especially self-published author, but a lot of these tips are true for even the traditional guys too. You want to create an author website. And on that site, put a sign-up form for your newsletter. And create that newsletter and send it out at least once a month, maybe every 2 months, maybe every 2 weeks, something like that, to keep your fans engaged with your content. You don't want your fans to buy your book one time and forget about you, right? Because if you sell a book once a year or once every 2 years, that's a lot of time for your readers to forget you exist, right?
Yes.
So if you're always emailing them every month, they don't get enough time to forget you, and they'll be aware of your next release. So doing things like this, make the website, do the newsletter, actually ask people to sign up for your newsletter. And the biggest secret that so many authors don't do, and I'm begging all my Twitter author friends to do it, is to go to local sales events, set up a vendor table and start selling your books there. So go to farmers markets, go to Comic Cons, go to library events, things like this. Some of them are very cheap. Actually, library events are free. You don't even have to pay for a vendor table. You just register in advance, and then you go and set up your table. It's infinitely easier to sell your books in real life to a flesh and blood customer that you can see and put the book in their hands than it is to a stranger on the internet who just, wades across Amazon where there's tens of millions of books and your book just kind of blends into the sea of them, right?
Yes. Very well said, Mr. Dylan. And thank you for your time.
Well, thank you. This is fun.
Bodycon people, see you soon.